morning. Good morning. It is time to talk about education. And I've been sort of vibing on this whole education thing for a couple of weeks. The secret is out. I was in a Facebook group that I was invited to, that I did not seek out. I was invited to, and somebody found out that I did a podcast. Now, and because I don't, I didn't participate in the echo chamber, and I had actually real questions that I wanted to hear from teachers about, because I really wanted to hear where people's heads were at. I was accused of being in the group to further my political platform on my podcast. So if you've never heard of this podcast, you already know how well that's working out for me. Oh my God. So today, I have a little time. I'm going to take some time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about education. I'm going to talk about it. And this may be my last day in the Facebook group. I did a show on Blog Talk Radio last night, but for some reason it didn't populate and it's not on the site. So screw it. I'll go to Blog Talk Radio's little brother, Spreaker, and I'll do it here because it always works. That never happens to me here. So, and the sound quality is immeasurably better. And I'm okay with saying both of that because I'm paying for both of them. So, yeah, bite me. Anyway, public school teachers, especially the ones in this group, don't believe that they need me, but they need me desperately. They need me more than they need their unions, more than they need their state legislatures, more than they need Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. They need me. Well, they need me, and you ask, what? Why do they need you? Well, they need me because I'm okay with whatever the reality is. I'm okay with speaking the truth as it is. I'm okay with saying that education won't change until the most important people who are in the educational process decide that they're going to change, that they're the change that they want to see. I believe that teachers are the most important part of the entire mess. Politicians aren't, parents aren't really, because I've seen kids do well with crappy parents. I've seen schools do well with crappy administrators. And you know why? It's because the teachers are good. The teachers are great. So they make it happen in the building. They make it happen in the building every day. They even make it happen when they have colleagues who suck. That's the deal. Good. They'll even make a school good even if a few of the teachers who are in the building suck. Good teachers will carry the load. It's sort of like my training is music and band, and I've heard many of really good bands that were carried by the better players. Now, let me give you an example. If you hear a high school band, especially, and this is especially true in high school, if you hear a high school band that's pretty good, I can almost guarantee you it's because their senior class is really good. And they are carrying the load. They're making the band sound good. I bet you if you go down that section and find that last trumpet player who's a freshman, he can't blow his nose. And this is what happens. This is what happens in everything. See, this is why teachers need me. Because I'm okay with saying this is what happens in everything. Teaching education isn't any different than any other part of life. Bad teachers who get found out make it bad for everybody. Bad doctors who get found out make it bad for everybody. Bad used car salesmen who do bad things make it bad for everybody. Bad plumbers make it bad for everybody. Especially in this world now that information can get out at lightning speed much faster than even word of mouth. We hear about that crooked used car salesman in California that we're never going to meet, never going to see, never going to have to deal with. We hear about that faster than anything nowadays because of the advent of things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So the same thing in education, where we find out that there's a teacher sleeping with some kid, and then and then the thought is like, golly, all those teachers are sleeping with the children. Well, that's not happening. Of course, that's ridiculous. But that's just an example of how quickly bad news travels. Bad news will travel much faster than good news, for sure. And that's one of the realities that I think teachers have to start dealing with, which is why they have to start self-policing and end this mentality of one for all, or one for all for one. No, because you know what? You are in partnership. You are in covenant with people who are destroying your profession. And I'm willing to say so. And what the good teachers are advocating for is exactly what they don't need. Protection from accountability. See, this is why they need me. They don't want me. They don't think they need me. But they need me desperately if they want to save public education, if they really are in love with public education and they want to save it, they are the ones who are going to have to make some changes. Now, I'm going to say they because we're talking in generalities, and if you don't talk in generalities, you can't talk about anything. A lot of teachers want everybody else to change, sort of to slip back into 1946 through 1960, where the teacher was revered and everybody thought that they were the savior of the nation. Those times are gone, never to return. Teachers are government employees. Well, teachers are government employees. End of story. If you teach in a public school situation, you are a public employee. You are a line item in labor costs, just like the receptionist in the school board building. Yes, that's a paradigm shift, isn't it? Stop thinking of one of the things first. Stop thinking of yourself as being so important. Now, yes, you are important. I just said so. But stop thinking of yourselves as being so important. Stop it. Stop the self-importance. And the self-importance that I'm talking about is, well, we're so important and we're so vital to the saving of the nation, the education of children, is that we should get special treatment. We should make a lot of money and not have to pay for anything. No. And it's because of the nature of what you do and how many of you there are. I know this is hard, isn't it? This is hard. Because we're all sort of stuck. I agree. I want to say this out front. I agree that smaller class sizes are better. The fewer of the little dickens you have to deal with at a time, the more attention you can give to each one, and the better off you'll be. I can't even imagine the terror of a second grade class that has 40 kids in it. I can't even imagine how terrified I would be. I'd be terrified every day. Every day, all day long. I just don't know how anybody does it. Now, fortunately, not a lot of people in Florida do it, but even 35, 8-year-olds in the same place, in the same room, at the same time? No! It's like Dante's 12th level of hell. No. So, We need to start advocating for the things that make the most sense. And one of the things that make most sense, of course, is and I think there was in Florida at one point a class size amendment. We need to start advocating for you need to start advocating for things like class sizes. Why? Because if class sizes stay that way, and then make them stay that way. I think there was an amendment that became part of the Constitution, and then people just friggin' ignore it because places are growing in by leaps and bounds. So what needs this is where we get into problems. What needs to happen is that smaller class sizes are better, which means you'll need more teachers, which means that you will dilute the pool of money for salaries. So they'll tell you this, and they're not all wrong. You can make more money or have smaller class sizes. The more teachers you hire, and especially now when you get new teachers who are coming in at a salary that may be 70% higher than an experienced teacher came in on. I mean, or maybe higher than what an experienced teacher is making, possibly, in some areas, not everywhere. So the problem is that the more teachers you have, the less money everybody makes. You see, this is why teachers need me. Because this is one of the realities. And politicians suck at saying this because they don't want to, because it doesn't get them elected. But it is the reality of what your situation is. So, we're going to have to do some things differently. We're going to have to do some things differently when bringing new teachers on. I did a podcast on Blog Talk Radio that was entitled "Teachers Ought to Be Like Free Agents," and so you have to change the way new teachers are brought in. Do you bring new teachers in at full salary? Well, the idea is that if you don't do that, then you won't get good teachers in. That may be true. But even the NFL, which is the National Football League, which is a fraternity of millionaires, supported by a fraternity of billionaires, figured out that you can't bring in rookies, people who have never played a down of NFL football, making more money than the people who have risked life and limb for this entertainment, and watch them flame out. Even the NFL, even the greedy, money-hungry, patriarchal NFL figured out you can't bring in rookies for the same amount of money that you bring in, veterans. So you have to do. So you're going to have to do something different to bring in good teachers. You're going to have to do something different in schools of education. You're going to have to require, and it doesn't seem fair, but you're going to have to require more. You're going to have to require more in the schools of education, and then you're going to bring people in on what amounts to rookie salaries, and you're going to have to develop methods by which to help them become good teachers. And if they don't measure up, you're going to have to wash them out. It's the beginning of self-policing. They're going to have to be held accountable early. And yes, I know every situation is different. Hell, every situation in a school is different. I understand that every situation in a school district is different, and every situation from district to district is different because of who you're teaching. Believe me, I understand. But that doesn't negate the fact that you're going to have to do it different, and you're going to have to embrace accountability. That's the only way that you're going to get the respect from people, citizens, that you need to be successful. We'll be back after this. In America, there are 3 proven ways to build wealth. business, investment, and real estate. All three seem to have high hurdles to jump to get into, but believe it or not, real estate is the lowest of the three hurdles, and multifamily real estate investing is the best way to go. From duplexes to apartment complexes, multifamily investing brings the biggest bang for your investment buck. My friends at Buy It, Rent It, Profit and the Landlord Academy are ready, willing, and able to get you going on the path of building wealth. Contact Joe Ebanks and Brian Chavis at buyitrentitprofit.com. buyitrentitprofit.com. Summer's coming soon. What are we going to do? How are you going to build memories? How are you going to keep the family and those kids entertained? Well, you are going to do something special. You're going to do something that you didn't think you were going to do. You're going to go to my website, fightbackmedia.com, and click on the Best of Orlando banner. And from there, you're going to be able to book all the best hotels and resorts in Orlando, get discounts on all the best attractions, Walt Disney World, SeaWorld, Universal Studios, and book the best shows, the Out of Control Comedy Dinner Show, and even the Blue Man Group in Orlando. You will be able to book all of those right there on the website. You'll be able to take the Boggy Creek Airboat Ride, the Wild Florida Airboats, Chef Mickey's Fun Time Buffet, and a tour of the city of Orlando. It's going to be a great time to build memories. Just go to fightbackmedia.com and click the Best of Orlando banner. Do it now. Build memories that you're going to have with your family forever. Do it right now. Go to fightbackmedia.com and click on the Best of Orlando banner at the top of my website. You are not going to regret it. You're going to come back after the summer and thank me. Thank you, Willie, for giving us the time of our lives. All right. Welcome back to the program. We appreciate you being here. We're talking about education and basically reforming it in a way that will look very much different than what it looks like now. I think teachers need me because what they've been trying to do is work inside the paradigm that they're in currently, and that's what most of us try to do. Now, if we're on the outside, like I'm on the outside now, it is, because I've retired, it is much easier to see it differently than when you're in it because you need it. It's your livelihood. It's how you feed your family. It's how you live indoors. So it's much more. It's much easier to be on the outside and see and move it all around and dissect it and deconstruct it because I'm not depending on it. You feel me? So I know I have that advantage. I know that I have that intellectual advantage that I can deconstruct the whole thing because I'm not depending on anything. I'm not saying, well, if we do this, I won't have this. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm not a new teacher going into the system, so I'm not worried about, well, how am I going to live on a rookie salary for 2 years? How am I going to do that? I don't have to, because I'm not doing that. I don't have to worry about it. So I can suggest it. I realize that I have that advantage. So what I've decided to do is continue with my deconstruction of the school system, of the public school system, so we can build it in a way that will last or be relevant for the next 50 years, because it's got to change. Things have got to be different. I learned from my friend Vinny Tafaro about a concept called Homo economicus. Homo economicus was as an economic model based on the idea that there would be one breadwinner in the house that would make enough money for him to have it was him to have a spouse, and that they would make enough money and pay in the property taxes enough for schools to always be funded because their property would always increase in value, and this is the paradigm which schools that were of the industrial age that they thrived in. Now things are not the same, and we're finding out, well, maybe even Homo economicus wasn't a good model then. It certainly isn't a good model now, and this is at the crux of what's happening in public education. Funding is a problem, is it not? And again, this is why teachers need me, because teachers are of the mind, and because teachers' unions use them to say that there's plenty of money, it's just being used somewhere else. Why? Because Republicans hate you. Republicans hate public education. They want to privatize everything. Some people would like to privatize everything, and those aren't Republicans necessarily. Those are usually libertarians. But that's not all. It isn't as simple as that. I understand there are a ton of moving parts to this. So when you start deconstructing stuff, you may end up with parts left over. Right? You ever take something apart and go, all right, I took it all apart, and then you put it back together, and it might work, and you go, why do I have all these leftover parts? Where did they go? And that's what we're talking about. It isn't this emotional, they just don't like you. They don't like public education. They don't like teachers. Because I hear that, and I say that because I hear that all the time. You know what? In that group that I'm in, and I probably shouldn't mention it because it just triggered some people to death that I mentioned the group, because they were thinking I'm using them as my negative opinions. Oh, no, I've had negative opinions all along. I've had negative opinions shortly after I started working in the school system. Are you kidding me? Actually, shortly before I went in, I had negative opinions that were confirmed almost day one of why things don't work like they should, why people don't get paid like they should. There was this thought forever and ever that the school district didn't pay teachers because they were mostly women, and in some places, I'm sure that was the truth. In some places, I am sure that was the truth. But now that isn't the truth, because everybody gets paid the same. The male teacher who leaves college and goes and is an eighth grade math teacher gets paid the same amount of money as the woman who gets out of college and goes and becomes an eighth grade math teacher in a middle school. They get paid, if they work for the same district, they get paid exactly the same. Exactly the same. They do. It just isn't true anymore. The only way that they don't get paid the same is that if the woman decides to take a leave of absence because she wants to have a baby, she wants to have children. So she takes some time off. And so she misses a few steps. Or she misses that raise. It ends up, when she comes back, making less than the person that she started teaching with. That's the only way that happens. There isn't a wage gap in that situation, that somebody took some time off. Or if the guy decides that he's going to take a leave of absence to further his education, get an opportunity to work somewhere else for a year, to work abroad, something, then that's how the salaries become different. So that isn't why anymore. The problem with funding is that the way they are funding public schools is an antiquated model. Teachers, you guys are smart. You have to understand that this is an antiquated model. See, so again, I go back to, it's easy for me to say that because I'm not depending on it. I can't just say it's antiquated and we need to throw it out, because what will I do? Will it be better than the thing I have now? Maybe, maybe not. So it's going to have to change. Funding for schools is going to have to change. Where the money comes from is going to have to change, because that pool of money that was, in the idea and ideals of Homo economicus was this bottomless pit of money that was always going to increase. What we're finding out is that that's just not true, and probably was never true. So now we're going to have to look for new ways to fund education. And at the same time, remember, a lot of moving parts, find ways to make education more relevant to what students need, and at the same time, make it more economical to do. That's a lot, isn't it? That's a lot. And I think that the only people who can do that is teachers. I don't think that that teachers can use even a teacher who's been teaching 20 years. You can't use the same model that you came in on. You're not going to graduate on the same calendar, on the same catalog you got in on it. And I think that that's where we have conflict. It's going to have to change. Part of that is that teachers are going to have to stop fighting calls for accountability. Going to have to stop fighting calls for accountability. You're going to have to start embracing it. Find ways to do it. Start self-policing. Because that's going to give teachers the political standing to start talking about these other issues. I know that bothers you, and you have a tendency to attach all this to different personalities or politics, but this is your reality. This is why you need me. This is your reality. You're going to have to stop letting unions protect crappy teachers. If you know that the teacher 2 doors down from you is not a good teacher, it's not your job to go after them. But it damn sure is your job to advocate for a system that replaces that person because they're not meeting standards. Who should these standards be written by? I think these standards should not be written by politicians. Good God, no. And they should not be written by college pukes. And I said it that way on purpose. People in the ivory tower who haven't been in an 8th grade classroom maybe ever in their life, who've never had to deal with 30 13-year-olds for 180 days straight. So maybe they're not the people to write these standards. This is why teachers need to start embracing accountability. And not only start embracing accountability, start advocating for your role in developing the measures by which you're going to hold yourself and your colleagues accountable to. I don't know why that's hard. I don't know why even thinking about that concept is difficult, because this is going to be how you win. You're going to be able to, if you listen to me, teachers, you're going to be able to change the paradigm so it benefits you. And you're going to be able to make that change. You're the only people that can. Depending on other people to do that for you, for other people to understand, you are going to end up in the same morass and the same crap that you have now, and probably less. You will have less at the end of the process if you think that somebody else is going to change their opinion, their views, their behaviors. It's going to be on you. And I know that's not what you signed up for, but that's what you got now. And that's just how it is. Are you looking for a reliable transportation, but you don't have a bunch of money? Are you wary of used car types? And you should be. You just need a car you can afford and a dealer you can trust. Great news. Good Guy Cars is here. John Desbrow is something you don't find every day. An honest used car dealer. Good Guy Cars is at 8412 Industrial Boulevard in Tampa, Florida. The phone number is 813-999-9992. That's 813-999-9992. The web address is www.goodguycars.com. Hi, this is Willie Lawson. Are you someone who wants to give more? Are you someone who wants to donate more to your favorite charity or even your favorite podcast, and you just don't have the money because you got too much credit card debt already? Well, I've got something for both of us. Debt.com. Debt.com is ready to put you into a debt consolidation program that will save you money, save your credit rating, and allow you to live your dreams in the way that you would like to live them. That's debt.com. Give them a call at 877-764-2393. That's 877-764-2393. Get out of debt today. All right, welcome back. Thanks so much for spending some time today. Thanks so much for spending some time today. We appreciate it. I really do. And I think, again, again, it's easy to deconstruct the system when I'm not depending on it, when I don't have to go there every day and deal with it. I know. It's easier to tear the house down if you don't have to live in it. It's easy to remodel the house if you don't have to live in it. When you're living in the house and you're going through a major remodel, it's a little tougher. There are some creature comforts that you have to consider. Like, if I tear out my kitchen, how will I cook? If I tear out all the bathrooms, where will I pee? You know what I'm saying? I understand. If I tear out my kitchen, where will I store my food? Where will I cook it, and where will I store it? Now, when I'm done, it's going to be great. But in the meantime, what do I do? And I know the things that I'm suggesting are similar to, I'm just going to tear the whole thing down. And people who are invested in the system right now aren't looking for people who want to tear the whole thing down and rebuild it. They're looking for, frankly, I'm going to tell you what teachers are looking for. And especially the teachers in this group, it seems, or some of them that have been brave enough to interact with me, is that they simply want their concerns met. No questions asked. Period. No room for dealing. We're teachers. We're awesome. All of us are awesome. We're altruistic, and we don't get paid crap. And politicians ought to treat us better, especially Republican politicians ought to treat us better. They ought to pay us more. I asked the question: how much do you think teachers ought to get paid? Actually, I didn't ask this in the group. I asked this on my own Facebook page, and somebody said the starting salary for teachers should be $100,000. Well, nobody gets to start off unless you can dunk a basketball at $100,000. You just don't. Nobody gets. And I understand the sentiment, but that's part of the problem. The problem is that a lot of times it's all sentiment and not reality. But even the professional athlete is instantaneously held accountable. When Shaquille O'Neal went to the Los Angeles Lakers after leaving the Orlando Magic, I think his contract was something like $115 million a year or something. At the time, it was like, oh my God, $115 million to play basketball and to be the face of the franchise. And indeed, at that time, to be the face, or one of the faces of the entire league, yes. And not be able to shoot free throws? Yes. But how much did he bring in? A lot more than $115 million, that's for sure. Just by ticket sales to Laker games, more than paid for himself. More than paid for himself by being part of the league. So that it was a deal that made sense. I remember that afternoon in the TPA of the school I was working at, where some teachers were having a conversation that nobody deserves that kind of money to play a sport. And I've always been, and I still am, what are you talking about? Who's to say what people earn is too much? And then I said it out loud so everybody could hear. There are people who think teachers make too much money. Oh, nobody believes that. Well, yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, they do, because I had spent some time outside of the system and then back in a fairly short amount of time. You know, I spent like a year on a leave of absence. And yes, I'd heard from people who believe that teachers make too much money. Why? Because your job is so easy. There are people out here who believe your job is easy. How hard can it be? First of all, you're indoors most of the time. Second of all, you're in the air conditioning. And they just don't think teaching's that hard. Well, those are the people who've never taught anybody anything, and hopefully will never teach anybody anything, and have not had to deal with not only their children, but their children's friends, into like 3 dozen of them at the same time. So I understand that. And I'm not saying that teachers' jobs are easy, but there are people out here who believe that it is. Why? Because the only place they have seen teaching is from the chair of the student. It's like teachers who think that administrators don't have a hard job, or especially like assistant principals, because they've only seen that job from the seat of the teacher. They have not seen that job from the seat of the administrator. They've not done it. People who think that the principal has it easy because they've only seen that job from the seat of the teacher, or maybe the seat of the assistant principal, who actually probably knows a little bit more and probably doesn't think the principal's job is that easy. But teachers will often say they don't do anything in that main office. You know what? And I've heard that. This is something else that we have to start being open and honest about. This whole idea that we are one for all for one, is nonsense. Because if you worked in a school any length of time, what you know is there ain't no unity in the community. There is a constant battle between guidance and the classroom. A constant battle between the dean's office, or student affairs, what they call it now, and the rest of the building. There's a constant battle. There is. Now, a lot of people get along, no doubt, but it seems almost that at almost every school I've ever been in, that at some point the guidance office and the rest of the building were at cross purposes. And I heard, because I got to travel around the building, in every school I've ever been, I've not been locked down to a classroom all day, 7 periods a day. I've got to work in guidance. I've got to work in student affairs. And what I hear from everybody is that nobody else in the building does a damn thing. Everybody's job is the hardest job ever. And I'm not saying that because most of the people I work with were women because the men that I work with are the exact same way. Not all of them. Thank God. I would have never made 15 years if all the men had been that way. But and not even all of the women were that way. I was blessed to work with some women who basically their idea was suck it up, buttercup. The job sucked when you got the job sucked when you got it, when you asked for it. Those kind of people were my favorite people. They were my favorite people. Yeah, it's hard. It sucks. And what? Do your damn job. That was the best encouragement that I've ever gotten from any of my department heads that I worked with, or any of the administrators that I've ever worked with. You know what? And I work in a number of schools, probably 6 or 7 different schools in 15 years. Was do your damn job. Just do your job. And that's all I want. They were very specific as to what they wanted, and they said, I need you to do this. Okay, cool. And I went about doing that. I can't say that I was as successful as I would have wanted to be every single time. I can't say that I was as successful as my administrators or my department heads wanted me to be every single time, because I wasn't. But it was comforting knowing that that's all I needed to do. I didn't have to whine about anything. I didn't have to bitch about anything. Complaining wasn't going to work. I could not complain my way out of doing my job. Just like I dealt with the students that I was in charge of. Whining at me was not going to get you out of anything. Here's what our task is. We have to find a way to do it. Period. End of story. And then be held accountable. It's what we expect from all of our students. So we have to be able to embrace accountability. Teachers, first of all, that is the biggest thing for me. Embracing accountability. Not finding ways to say, well, it's not fair. There's no way to do that. Well, that's nonsense. There's a bunch of ways to do that, because frickin' your teachers, you're all universally learned. Some of you have advanced degrees. You can't tell me that it's impossible. When JFK said that we're going to put a man on the moon, all these scientists and engineers, in the country looked at each other like, what the hell is he talking about? Are you kidding me? Before the end of the decade, and I'll be damned if not before the end of the decade, Neil Armstrong was walking around playing golf on the moon. That was a job. It was hard. And they did it. And that needs to be the attitude that teachers have. This is why teachers need me. Because right now, along with the rest of America, I believe teachers are allowing themselves to be soft. And what I say by that is that they are pushed around by politicians, they're pushed around by parents, they're pushed around by kids, they're pushed around by people like me who have who don't have a positive thing to say necessarily, that are not participating in the echo chamber of, oh, teachers are wonderful and we should love our teachers all the time, no matter what, no matter how little they do, no matter how they fight accountability, no matter what, we should always support our teachers. I'm like, no, we should support our great teachers. We should get rid of our crappy teachers. We should exalt our great teachers, people who are doing great things in horrible situations. Those are the ones that I want to exalt. Those are the ones that I want to pay more. Those are the ones that I want to make $100,000 a year. And even if they choose to only teach Algebra 1 6 periods a day, if you choose that, you need $100,000 a year and therapy. But you know what? If they're good at it and kids are getting it, and yes, those are the ones that I want to make $100,000 a year. Not the ones who have a DVD collection in the bottom drawer of their desk that they can't wait to use twice a week. And you all know teachers like that. And to say you don't is disingenuous, because we all know Mr. Ditto from the movie Teachers. Now, this is an older movie, and maybe some of you younger teachers won't know this movie. Find it. I'm sure it's available on DVD. It's definitely available VHS for sure. And maybe you can find it on Netflix or Hulu. But it's called Teachers. It's about a day. It's a sort of a day in the life movie. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for people who aren't going to go see it, who aren't going to see it. There's this teacher in the movie that the other teachers call Ditto. Now, they call him Ditto, and the older people who are listening to me are already laughing, because you know what that means. That there used to be a thing called a Ditto machine, which was a copy machine, not a photocopier, but a Ditto machine. And that machine would use a stencil, and you would type on the stencil what you wanted, and then you type and you put it on this machine that had this big rolling thing that was ink based, and it would make copies of the things that you had typed on the stencil. Now, Ditto needed that every day, because all he did was pass out handouts for kids to do every day. And they go to Ditto's classroom. It's such a well-run machine. People would think that there's education, there was education going on in there. The fact of the matter is there wasn't any education going on in there at all. He would, at the beginning of the day, he would put the dittos to be done on one side of his desk, and then the completed dittos were on the other side. Handouts. He had specific kids every period who would grab the blank dittos, pass them out to the class, collect them, and put at the end of the class and put them on the other side of the desk. Now, in the beginning of the movie, Ditto goes to his room. Class starts, the bell rings, kids come in, they do their thing. Ditto has the newspaper out, and he can't even see them. Ditto has a heart attack and dies in the beginning of the movie. He's dead. The only time they miss him is that Ditto didn't make it to lunch, because he's been dead for 3 hours in the classroom. Rigor mortis has set in. And all the teachers that I went to see this movie with, we all laughed our asses off, because we all know Mr. Ditto, Mr. Copy Machine, Ms. Copy Machine, who was in the workroom first thing every morning. And if the copy machine doesn't work, it's like, holy crap, I guess you're going to have to teach today, hon. God, they hate that too, don't they? But anyway. So it looked like that was going on. So those teachers I don't want to reward. I don't want them making $100,000 a year. I want them out of the profession. So I'm not one for all for one. I'm not. I'm celebrating the teachers who are great teachers, who do a great job in sometimes in crappy situations. Those are the people who need to be making the money. Those need to be the example. Those need the ones that are embracing accountability, because they have nothing to fear. Because they're doing the job regardless. They're not whining about how hard it is. They're just doing it. And if we're honest, we all know someone like that. We all know that teacher who gets the crappy kids and turns them into great kids. Like we all know the teacher who has that kid who's trouble for everybody else, except for this one teacher, except for Mrs. Smith. He doesn't give Mrs. Smith any crap. He does exactly what Mrs. Smith asks him to do all the time. And he's a terror in everybody else's class. That one kid that if he's absent, you get stuff done, but if he's there, you don't get anything done anytime he's in the classroom, and that kid ain't never sick. The serum, if you draw his blood, you can get the serum for every disease known to man because that kid ain't never sick. We all have that, right? Right? But in Mrs. Smith's class, he's an angel. He likes her. We're not sure if Mrs. Smith is doing something different. She works hard. She works those kids hard. Her curriculum is relevant and rigorous, and she never complains. She never complains about work she takes home. She never complains about anything. She enjoys her weekend. She likes her summer. She goes on vacation. She does all the stuff, but he loves her. I want her to get paid $100,000. You understand? Teachers need me. I guess, well, wait a minute, stop. Good teachers need me. Because the union does not do anything near enough for Mrs. Smith. They don't do anything good enough for people who have chosen to go into socially depressed economic areas and choose to teach kids who are struggling and families who are struggling. The union does, the teachers union, none of them, not one single one of them, outside of maybe a special program here or a special program here, is doing nearly enough for those teachers. They need me. Because you know what? I would let those teachers freaking loose. I would let them loose. Nobody knows more about their situation than they do. No one can fix it better than they can. I would turn them loose. But most of them are too busy teaching kids to try to, and again, they don't have the luxury of deconstructing the system when they're dependent on it. It's easy for me out here. I understand that. All right, we got to get out of here. I've spent almost an hour with this rant. And that's enough. And I think I'm done. I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Yeah. All right. Anyway, thanks for listening to the program today. I appreciate it. Well, until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.